Hey everybody, welcome back, and welcome to the next project, Rolling in the Garage. We've got a real fun build today. I have a friend who has purchased this truck and is looking to turn it into a mobile coffee bar. He came to me with the ask to build out some cabinetry on the inside. He came and dropped it off at the house, and I'm gonna work on it in the garage. So I do apologize up front for some of the bad lighting that you might see throughout this video, but I tried to make it so you could see what's going on. A peek on the inside. This is a 1990 or 91, I can't remember, Mitsubishi. It's Japanese, and he had it brought over from Japan, and it was a bakery truck. Pretty cool little vehicle, very boxy. He had already purchased some of the parts that he needs to outfit this thing. He just needs my help kind of building the structure to place the sink and the faucet and the ice tray and things like that. Here's a look at the back end. The gate opens up and then this bottom part folds down. So you can see that's how people are going to walk up to this to get their coffee. So we're going to build a little bar in the back section here. And then here's the front end. Pretty excited to get started on this. Definitely a first for me. This is Juan, the client. Not a great picture of Juan. Sorry, Juan. But we're talking counter height right here. Not a huge vehicle at all. You can kind of see my height. I'm roughly around 6 feet tall. The truck was probably just about 5 feet wide, just under 5 feet wide, and another 5 or 6 feet just in the back end to work in. So pretty tiny and compact. He came over and had this layout already in place about where he wanted things, and we discussed making this kind of L-shaped piece of furniture in the back to hold all of this. A few obstacles. There's the wheel wells I have to work around, and also the flooring, if you can see it, kind of has this divider in the middle. And the back part of it was where the spare tire goes and not really well supported. So I had to put some support underneath that little panel to make that somewhat strong. But I put the bulk of the material on the floor section closer to that camera shot. I'm going to go through this and just kind of talk about a few things. You kind of see me building in the background here. This was an interesting build. It was really fun. It was challenging, one, in that nothing was square in this vehicle. The vehicle itself was mostly level in my garage, although not perfect, and I tried to get it as best I could. But even walking inside the vehicle, it would kind of tip one side to the other, just from my weight. It's not a very heavy vehicle. And the flooring was like a plywood covered in a vinyl kind of flooring material that, again, wasn't totally level. So nothing really straight or true in this vehicle. So I worked to try and get as much level as I could going in. I decided to start with the back panel first as my starting point to get that in place and then build everything off around that. This is my first time bringing this piece in, and I do not expect it to fit on the first try. I'd be shocked if it did. It took a few tries to get this to fit, but eventually it got there. Okay, here's a take two. Okay, third time's a charm. Fourth time. It's not too bad. About the construction on this, Juan did have a concern about this thing being too heavy. The truck isn't very powerful, and building solid plywood cabinetry in the back would have been a way to go, but we were both concerned about the weight. So my approach on this was to kind of build a frame structure inside that would be able to hold the weight of the counter appropriately, because the countertop does have some weight, but keep it as light as possible in the back end, trying to keep things open and using just enough material to support what needs to be supported, but not putting in too much. So you can see I kind of have a central post here. I've got a couple support pieces coming off of that. Here's a look in the back end after kind of the first day, 2 days of working on this, planning out where things are going to go. And the back end was really just a piece of 1/2-inch plywood with some poplar boards attached to it. One, to pretty it up on the inside, but also to give it some support and structure. Here's a shot from above about how things are going to fit in there. That was after the first couple days. I sent that to Juan just to confirm placement of everything. That piece of cardboard is where the espresso machine is going to go eventually. I don't typically do vehicles. I've never really have done one in this capacity before. And trying to figure out where all of the parts and pieces for making his service work was one of the biggest challenges. He had a requirement to have a sink included, a faucet, a spot for the espresso machine, a knock box as it's called, also a spot for the ice tray to come in, as well as a tap tower and a little tray to catch the extra liquid coming off of that. Getting all this in place and making sure that my support pieces were where they needed to be, and structurally I had to make sure that all of my bracing was going to go in the spots where nothing else was going to live in the countertop. You can see in the shot here, I put some poplar boards in the back of that back panel, again, to kind of make it look nice from the inside, but it's giving it some structure as well. And then I was attaching these pieces together, not just with brads and nails to kind of hold it in place while the glue dried, but following up with some screws to make sure that it's really secure. I just did a little decorative piece in the bottom of this panel here, ran it through the router and then put it in the bottom, some glue and then some brads to hold it in place while it dried. And then I made a series of these little braces that you can kind of see in this shot here. I put my foot on this section here waiting for the glue to dry. But you can see that these braces are kind of holding the sides to the bottom piece there, giving it some lateral stability. And after all the structure was done on the inside, I put a coat of spar urethane on all the inside to give it some protection. And here's what the inside looks like after a couple days of working. Again, plywood and poplar is what I got working here. And here's a shot at the outside. You can kind of see how this is going to come together with the countertop just being an L shape. And I left room for some sliding doors that travel in front of each other. Those are going to go in those two sections there where my knee is right now, where I'm kind of sitting. There'll be a couple sets of doors on either side to hide the insides. I used some 1/4 inch poplar trim boards on this back panel to just dress it up a little bit, make it look a little nicer. And it's the same material I'm going to use on the doors later. A lot of sanding and detailing here to make sure everything is great before I start priming. The primer, I got regular white primer and had some black thrown in it at the store to mix it up, so it's more of a gray color than it would be coming straight out of the can of pure white, which was a big help. And then the paint color is not a totally rich black, but a deeper gray black color. Looks black here in the shot, but in daylight it's got a little bit of a grayness to it. And Juan has this black color motif going already with other branding elements he has in place. The structure is pretty much done. I'm moving on to the countertop now. Probably my biggest fear here is messing this up. This countertop we bought from IKEA, just off the shelf. Not a bad product overall. And I thought I'd try to make a template here to make my life a little easier getting it in, because I was worried about making a miscut on this. So I tried some cardboard and tape and making a template. I don't think it was necessarily successful. My face kind of says it all here pretty much. It just wasn't really going my way. In the end, the countertop, I had to cut a little shorter on that back section because of these metal support pieces you see on the walls inside the truck. These are little strips, edging strips that come with the countertop, which I did use on the inside portion. You'll see that a little later. And the countertop, not a bad product, I said. It's definitely solid. It's definitely heavy. It's going to withstand a lot of abuse. I'm basically making a few cuts to trim it up widthwise and then cutting it to length, so I have a long section in the back and then a shorter section where the sink and espresso machine are going to sit. This was by far the heaviest portion of the build here. So keeping the structure lighter helped compensate for the weight coming in for this countertop. That piece I cut off there on the table saw, I eventually used those at the end to cover the gap between the countertop and the sidewall. I put some silicone down just to kind of hold it in place, and then I fit this bad boy in. You can kind of see on the right side there, that piece of metal on the wall, had to get it past that, and then it popped into place. First try was a good fit, and I was happy with it. Leaves just enough room for that tailgate and that top portion to close down, so it's all compact in the back. And this is where you'd walk up and get the coffee. Here's that smaller portion. That's where the sink's gonna go. I had to cut around that metal support in the back there, but overall it was a pretty good fit. I attached this to the structure from the bottom with a number of L braces. And I paused here to make sure I had all the parts and pieces and it was gonna fit where it needed to go. Looked like it was going to. So onward to cutting all the holes in this countertop for all the things that Juan needs to operate on the back of this. Juan already had some of this material going in other parts of his business, so he brought over a couple of things he already owned. Some of this is new, like this sink is new for this build. You'll see in a bit, he has a water pump mechanism that helps carry water from some jug tanks up to the faucet. So some of the stuff he already had and we're gonna repurpose here, and he'll be able to kind of swap things in and out as he needs to between this vehicle and some other activation pieces he already has going. And so at this point, I'm really just taking my time and trying not to make any mistakes, cutting holes in this countertop. Sink was a pretty good fit, happy with that. I don't film everything here, so you'll see a few holes kind of pop up magically, but the ice tray in the back, originally we were going to turn it 90 degrees and it just wouldn't fit that way, so I had to turn it long ways, which you'll see. And that support that I put in the back there had to go in that spot in order for the ice tray bucket to fit in that right spot. Here's where that ice tray bucket's going to go. To the right of this is where the knockbox hole will become. To the left of this is where a little tap tower and then a tray to catch the dripping will go as well. I'm just putting on some trim right here underneath the countertop. Behind me, behind my shoulder, you'll see I put some edge banding on that one piece on the left-hand side there. That's those pieces that came in the box. And then I'll use the other piece in this right-hand section here. Here are those offcut pieces from the table saw. I just trimmed them down and attached them in place here to kind of hide that gap. Again, that countertop was a little shorter than what I wanted because of that metal support above my hand. So I had to make it a little shorter, and this helps cover that gap. You can see the sink. Here's this hole for the faucet. There's a hole in the back for some wiring to go through for the espresso machine. Down below here, here's that water pump setup. I did cut a hole underneath this to get cables from the inside of the cabinet to the outside. He has a battery system already set up in another area that he's going to use here. And this is how the whole sink mechanism area looks. And some cleanup because it was pretty dusty cutting all these holes. At this point, I'm pretty much wrapped up here. I'm just dropping in the last little bits. Here's that knockbox, and here's the tray for that tap tower. He came over and took this away on a Tuesday night, and that following Friday, he rolled it out for the first time. So he spent a few days at his house putting in the final pieces like that tap tower and putting all the hosing for that, getting all the tanks in place, putting the faucet in place behind that sink. And here's pretty much the final result as it left my house. You can kind of see the L shape here, a lot of room to walk up. The ice bucket does have a cover. He can put things on top of that as he needs to. And we left plenty of room on the right-hand side for the espresso machine, which you'll see in a little bit. And In the few days between this filming and what you'll see at the end, he put up some really great tile pieces on the walls, a black color, and LED wireless lights that he put along the sides that are magnetic. And what a difference it made inside. It looks so great when you walk up to it. You'll see in a little bit. But in terms of my commitment, this is where I ended with what I had to build for him. Didn't get a chance to finish the doors before he came and picked it up, so you'll see in a second here, there'll be a set of doors on tracks that'll fit in this area here, just 2 doors, that kind of sliders. So I'm gonna finish those up and send those over to him in a little bit. But overall, this is where he would sit. All the tanks and the storage is underneath, and then that was it, and it rolled out of my house. It was a fun build. It was a challenging build, that's why I liked it. I don't normally do builds like this. It put me in a new zone of thinking, and I really appreciate the challenge and the opportunity. Here's that Friday night rollout, downtown Aurora, Illinois. See that tap tower there on the left-hand side. You see the ice tray cover there. He's got spot for the machine in the back, cups. He has this really cool music setup in the corner there. Look at that tile on the walls and the lights. Looks fantastic. So I'm really happy how this turned out, and it looks great. Go find Juan in downtown Aurora when you can and get some coffee. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Juan. Dapper Brews is his company. Appreciate you all watching. I will see you again. Take care.